This video is to give you an introduction into Excel 2016. When we open a worksheet in Excel, we'll get something that looks like this. Obviously, we've got the usual drop-down menus at the top. We've got our toolbar here with our tools, and then below it we've got a grid. The grid is made up of rows and columns. Each row is identified by a letter across here. Each column is represented by a letter, rather. Each row is represented by a number. And when we choose an intersection of a column and a row, we find what's called a cell. Now, a cell is referenced by the row, by the column, and then the row. So that means that the column here is A, the row is 1, the cell then is A1. If I pick another cell here, column is F, row is 8, the reference of that cell is F8. And one more, which is right down here, this is column L, row 18, so the reference here again is L18. You'll notice also at the bottom there's a tab here, it says sheet 1. We can change that, and I'm going to type in first sheet. Now you can name that anything you wish, and usually it's relevant to what's on the spreadsheet. I'm going to choose a cell, B3, and I'm going to start putting in a table of things. Let's say you're a traveling salesperson, you're visiting a number of areas. Now you have to keep up with your costs because you're going to get them reimbursed by the company. So you want to know how much you've spent on doing business for the company. So the first thing I'm going to put in is date. Underneath that, I'm going to put in a date. And to 2020. When I click that, it seems to have taken it in okay. Let's do the day later, and I'm just going to put 20 here instead of 2020. Click here, and it automatically picks up that these are dates. Now, if they weren't represented as dates, because normally the format of a cell is what's called general and not specifically formatted for date. But what we can do to format a cell is select the cells, right click, go to format cells. Now, you'll see here that it's automatically recognized them as a date. But let's just reformat that and put it as general. Okay. Now what we find is the date has turned to a number. What does that mean? Well, that is the number of days that this current date would be, that I've put in here, after the 1st of January 1900. That doesn't mean much to us at the moment, but you can see here 7 and 8, which means that each single value represents a day. Each value of 1 represents 1 day. So I'm going to reformat this to date. So format cells, I'm going to have it as a date. Let's bring that back in here. Date, and OK, and there it is. Our dates are there. The next thing we want to do is costs. Now, what was the cost? Well, let's put in food because we've got to eat. Well, first day's food was $12.50. Pretty cheap day. And the second day we had a big meal, so that was a $59.25. Now, also we had to stay somewhere, so our accommodation, we need to put in costs for that. The only problem is our heading is longer than our column. To be able to do this, one easy way of doing it is simply take your cursor up to the boundary of D and E till you get that double arrow, hold down the left button and just drag the column edge until it fits accommodation in quite well. Accommodation, first night was $156. Second night we stayed at somewhere a bit more swank, and that was $198.50. Now, a couple of things here with VCAR conventions. First of all, VCAR convention, and a convention is a rule about how we display data. We'll learn more about conventions later on. But you can see here that this data, they're not in a consistent format. So we need to put them in a consistent format. And for dollar values, VCAR says we must have 2 decimal places. So how do we do that? We choose all of those cells. We right click, we go to Format Cells, we go to Number, and 2 decimal places is here. It's already there. So just here, so then we can go OK. You'll notice now that they're in 2 decimal places. Now the question you'll say is, well, hang on a minute, you haven't put in their dollar values. And the other thing about VCAR conventions is it says you don't have the units in the cell with the values. So how do we show these are dollars? We go up to the title of the column. We put in a bit extra, a bracket with our dollars. We're going to have to stretch this column a little bit further. Same for accommodation. What that tells us is that any value in these columns are dollar values. You can put $A if you really want it to be an Australian dollar. It's up to you. Okay, we've done that. Now, we also wanted to get totals. How do we do that? Well, an easiest way, if you just want a total from a column, is to select the cells that you want to total plus an extra empty cell. This is a bit of a cheats way of doing it, but it works very well. And I can come up here to auto sum, which will automatically put the sum formula at the bottom. I click that, and there's our total. Now, if we have a look at what it actually is, we could have typed this out. Equals sum C4 to C5. In other words, add all the cells between those two. Well, they're next to each other, so it's very simple. But if we had 10 cells, we'd have the first cell and the last cell with the numbers in, and then the total would be below it. You can also put, and I'll show you another way of doing this, equals. As soon as you put equals into an Excel spreadsheet, it tells you that you're entering a formula. The next thing I could do is click on this one. That identifies that cell, plus this one, and enter. And again, it gives it the value, but instead of using the sum function, I've just simply added the cells together manually. The other good thing about spreadsheets is we can easily copy formulas across, and you'll see this little yellow square in the lower right-hand corner of the cell. If you click the left button down on your mouse and drag it, and then let it go, you'll see that actually it has automatically generated a formula for this column. And in fact, it's changed the cell references from C4 to C5 to D4 to D5. So that is, I guess, a quick introduction on how to enter data, how to format data, and how to start manipulating the data with formulas in Excel.